Alright folks, listen up. I say in these videos that biology is action over time for a reason. There's a misconception amongst consumers of fitness content that the lead time on the outcomes of certain inputs is a lot shorter than it actually is. And this is reinforced with things that have fairly proximal results. Like for instance, you have a massive bolus of caffeine, you will have a lot more energy very shortly thereafter. That is probably the example that just about everyone is most familiar with. So we oftentimes take these convenient examples of very immediate cause and effect relationships, like I do this and this happens, and then we extrapolate that to other things that don't happen that way. In fact, most things don't. I don't know how many people I've heard or even know personally that have started lifting, for instance, to get bigger. And then they're like, yeah, I tried that, it didn't work. Well, how long you try it for? Like 8 weeks, 3 months, a year. It didn't work. Well, dude, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, these things take time, right? You don't go to college and then, get your degree and then immediately walk into your first job interview and they're throwing 6 figures at you. That's not how it works. Biology is very similar. A lot of times, the outcome that you want takes a meaningful period of time after the completion of the stimulus to obtain that outcome. A good way to look at it is like a machine, like an elevator. You have reasonable certainty that if you push that button to go, I don't know, let's say you're on the first floor and you want to go to like floor 20. You push the button to make the elevator door open, but it doesn't open right away because it might be up on the 20th floor. You're not worried about it because you know that it's going to ultimately make its way down and the door's going to open. So even though you're not an engineer, you do have some rudimentary understanding that you push that button and there's all kinds of like little gears and mechanisms and stuff like that in the background that have to whirl and turn, and power has to go from here to there and yada yada yada, and cables and stuff. And then eventually, after a meaningful period of time, the cab comes down and the door opens, and then you can get in the elevator, and then you got to push another button to determine what floor you want to go to. So then you push the 20 button, and then the doors close, and then more little things whirl and yada yada yada, and then eventually you make your way up to floor 20. That's a gross oversimplification of how these processes work. Fat burning, muscle building, making yourself more aerobically fit, making yourself stronger neurologically, even something like coordination, skill development. These things take time, and the processes that determine specifically how much time and how much input is required to even get that process going are vastly more complex than that elevator I just described. So all that to say, yeah, this stuff takes a long time, but just because you don't see it happening right away or in a few days or even in a few weeks doesn't mean you should stop. Just like waiting for that elevator door to open after you push the button, trust the process. Because if you're doing all the right things, you should have a reasonable certainty that it's going to work. When you're consistent, you should expect results. So stay in the fight.